After a few moments of silence in your room, you begin to hear your favorite song coming from behind you from your speakers. You start to nod your head, you recognize the beat, you recognize the lyrics, but it sounds different somehow. For whatever reason, it sounds like it's almost like there's more layers to the song than you originally thought when you were listening to it on your phone. You're listening to your music in a different way for the first time. You're listening on a vinyl record. Vinyl records, as well as the cassette tape, have actually been going underneath a bit of a resurgence as of late, despite the climb in and the heavy implications on streaming services and CD sales in recent years. I've collected and studied these two formats, vinyl records and cassettes, for the past year and a half or so, and I've studied in great depth the cleaning processes, the maintenance, and the way that both formats work in good detail, and I'm going to explain these two formats in a bit more detail here today. I'm going to talk about records and then cassettes, and then within each topic itself I'm going to talk about why many people don't really like them, the problems with them, and then I'm going to talk about why, despite these problems, many people still enjoy using them today. I'm going to start off with records. Records are not a perfect format, but they still have a certain charm to many consumers. One of the main problems with records is that they have a very high maintenance, and even when they're kept in tip-top shape, the sound is still imperfect. The Association for Library Collections and Technical Services, or ALCTS, goes into more detail about this, including how records must stay clean, be stored vertically, must be kept cool, dry, and safe from abrasive materials at all times. And if they aren't, then the life of the product will be reduced as a result. I'm going to give an example right here. This small record, if you can see it, there are several dust spots and scratches, and there's actually a clip on the outside of it. These affect playback severely, that you can hear louder pops and crackles as you play the record, and it becomes increasingly harder to focus on the music instead of the flaws. Compare that to this record, which was released in 2014, but I actually purchased about 4 months ago. There's virtually no scratches on it, besides the fact that it is slightly dirty. If I were to play this, it would rival the quality of a CD, and the only problem would once again be that it is a bit dirty and there would be some slight pops and crackles in the background. Many fans consider these problems, these supposed problems, to be exclusive features rather than detriments to the format itself. Computer Shopper wrote an article called Let's Get Physical, where they discussed the sales of vinyl records in the past several years. And they talked about during 2017, sales of vinyl records enjoyed an increase of 26.8%. That would be interesting in and of itself, even if you didn't realize that this has been a yearly growth that started in 2007. So this so-called fad has been going on for well over 10 years. Quality Progress also wrote an article called Music to Whose Ears, where they discuss why many people still prefer vinyl records even to this day. A professor of composition by the name of James Paul Sain at the University of Florida talked about how the vinyl recording is a direct copy of the master recording that is made when a song is produced in a large studio. Thus, it is a more accurate copy of the song itself. He also talked about how modern-day music is rushed, how they use less sophisticated software, and thus it's harder to focus on the texture, the quality of the song itself, because it's just not made very well. Now I'm going to talk about cassettes, which are a very different beast entirely. They're just as frustrating to collect and use in many different ways because of maintenance and noise interference, for example, but they also have a large fan base as well. Cassettes, for example, are more durable, but they're difficult to preserve, just like records, but in different ways. The Minnesota Historical Society wrote about this in more detail in their article, Audio Tapes and Videotapes. I'm going to show this here as another visual aid. You can see that the outside is actually plastic, so it keeps the dirt and dust from actually getting into the tape itself, from getting wound inside of it and affecting the audio quality severely. But the very real concern with cassette tapes is that if the tape stretches, breaks, or comes loose from the spool itself when you're playing it, then it's very difficult, if not impossible, to fix it. And so you'd have to either re-record the tape on a new tape or repurchase the tape itself. Despite these flaws, they're still a very niche item for some consumers. The St. Louis Public Radio in 2014 did a small bit titled The Return of the Cassette Tape, this time also as works of art. where they discussed that cassettes never really truly died in the same sense as records did at one point, because they remained popular in punk and hard rock genres over the past several years, because the loud screaming and violent sounds within those two genres kind of drown out the imperfect sounds of the recording itself on a cassette. And more recently, they've actually gone under a bit of research, as I discussed earlier. Billboard actually did a bit of a study into the percentages of sales these past couple years as well. And they talked about how cassette sales rose 35% between December 30th of 2016 and December 28th of 2017, largely because of two popular franchises as of late: Stranger Things on Netflix and Guardians of the Galaxy and its two soundtracks, all of which were released on cassette and garnered huge sales as a result. This is another example of an imperfect format that many find to have a unique charm that is unreplicated on any other format to this day. Today I've discussed in brief vinyl records and cassettes, why many people don't like them, and why many people still find them to be a worthwhile format to collect and use to this day. Their dedicated fan bases are only growing despite the increased use of streaming by major companies, but the formats are loved because of their flaws and the problems with them, rather than disliked, which is very interesting. And so it's important to remember, especially in this day and age of everything being digital and everything being served to you on a silver platter in an instant, that sometimes people prefer the scenic route, as it were, over the shortcut. I'm going to leave you all with that, and I want to thank you for your time.